Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Achtung, Achtung, welcome to We Have Ways of Making You Talk USA.
What is that?
Oh, it's my little piano on my desk, and I'm trying to play Jingle Bells, but I managed to muff it.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, welcome to We Have Ways USA with me, Al Murray, John McManus, and James Holland. And today, what we thought we'd do, for seasonal reasons, is offer you some tales of Christmas, Second World War. Isn't that right, gentlemen?
That is correct. Yes.
They're maybe not tales of Christmas cheer. Maybe they are. I mean, mine definitely isn't. But that's what we're doing, and to get you in the sort of seasonal mood, isn't that right, Jim?
Yes.
So who's going first? That's the question.
I think you're going first, aren't you, Al?
Right.
You're our leadoff hitter.
December the 21st, 1939. I want to do 1939 because we so rarely do the bit when we're losing, right? We so rarely. But when we're losing on our own as well, John, I just want to...
Right. And on our side of the Atlantic, we've got an army smaller than Romania. So there's that too. I mean, it's wonderful. Great
marvelous
time.
Stuff. Exactly. Great time for everybody.
But in the United States, people can still buy new Chevrolets and new radios.
That's right.
So at least that's okay.
Right. So on the 20th,
have turkey for Christmas.
We'll start off with on the 21st of December 1939, Stalin's 60th birthday. So
What?
Yeah. So happy birthday to the big man, who at this point is not our ally. We don't really know what to do about him because, as we all know, the Winter War is up and running in Finland. And I wanted to take a little glance at what's happening on Christmas Day, 1939, in the Karelian Isthmus. And it's an extraordinary story. The Battle of Kelia. I don't know if either of you know anything about this, but it's really, really, really interesting. Now, of course, 10 years ago, Vladimir Putin got some historians together and he said that the reason the Winter War was fought, he told them the reason the Winter War was fought was to correct errors made in the border previous settlements.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it's probably pretty reasonable then.
Exactly.
No problem.
The correct mistakes in determining the border with Finland after 1917. That's what Stalin was trying to do. So, fair enough, I suppose. Nowadays, that's the kind of thing the Russians are doing. So there we are. And it's all part of this battle, the Battle of Kelia, which is a village in the Karelian Isthmus, which is the stretch of land. It's about 100k wide at its widest. The stretch of land between St. Petersburg and sort of the bulk of Finland. If you think of Finland, if you think of Scandinavia as sort of the head of the alien in Alien,
yes,
then it's the bit that goes up to Finland from St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is right on the edge of this isthmus. And
yes, and it's where it's about which Sibelius wrote a very famous suite.
Yeah, that's right. And spoiler, this is now part of Russia where we're talking about, which I think indicates how. In fact, I mean, you can see if you're a paranoid empire, how this border being this close to one of your former capital city might be making your pants itch. But so there's the Mannerheim line, which is across the isthmus, which is the key area of the Winter War. At the top of it is the city of Viipuri, which is now the Russian city of Vyborg, where the Nord Stream 1 runs. It's a gas city. It's Finland's second largest city. And if they can take this, then the Soviets can get into the rest of Finland. And they can get to Helsinki dead easy. So it's really, really important sector. In the run-up to the 25th of December, and we're talking, it's minus 40 this battle is being fought in. Very, very, very short days because we're that far north. And minus 40 is minus 40 in Celsius and Fahrenheit, I discovered today. I checked that. That's a happy coincidence. So we don't have to explain it to anybody. It's just really, really fucking cold. I think it's the best way of putting it. And the state things is interesting. So the Soviets have essentially modern equipment. They do have some aircraft. The Finns don't have this stuff. They haven't really got any tanks. They've got Vickers tanks, the little Vickers tank from in between the wars. Some of their artillery is 19th century, but the emphasis in the Finnish army is on training and tactical nous. In the run-up, the week before or the fortnight before the Christmas Day, there's infantry attacks that reach their big human wave attacks of Soviet infantry that are repulsed by Finnish artillery. And then what the Soviets do is they start to just shell every day and reinforce. And they bring up the Soviet 4th Rifle Division up across Lake Suvanto, which is frozen, and attack the town of Kelja. And what they do is they do a massive artillery barrage on the Pantanaimi fort, which is away from Kelja as a feint, and they get 3 battalions across the ice. Form beachheads, Soviet artillery opens up on the rear Finnish positions. And so some of the Finns are confused as to what's going on because they've been shelled regularly up to this point. They don't know if this is a feint, business as usual, a proper attack. The fighting gets gets bitter. The Finns are able to bring troops up. They're able to reinforce. They're able to hold the Soviets off, right? But obviously, they're in a permanent state of if they pick one place to defend, they've got to strip others because they're massively outnumbered. So deciding actually how to be decisive around Kelja becomes very, very, very difficult. And the Soviets dig in and you then there's a pattern that forms over the next 3 days where the Finns put in a really, 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 really big counterattack, infantry counterattack, bring what artillery they can to bear, and then are repulsed. And there's a sort of, by the end of Christmas Day, and, we're talking, the thing is the Soviets come across the ice at night and attack in daylight at 8:30 in the morning because the days are so short. When we say by the end of the day, we're looking at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon anyway, because the days are so short. And the Finns are able to hold the Soviets at the edge of Kelja, then push them back into the edge of the forest that's by the ice, right? And so that's Christmas Day. This is really like really, really bitter, bloody, hand-to-hand stuff. It's an infantry battle in absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible conditions. Boxing Day, they send in the Soviets try to send reinforcements across the ice. The Finnish artillery paid to that. Then you got 2 more counterattacks by the Finns that morning as the situation starts to deteriorate. They decide early in the morning of Boxing Day, they send an attack towards the Soviets, but they have no fire support, so they're repulsed. They do it again with 2 companies rather than a company like the first one. That's repulsed again. Then they're ordered to just hold. The Finns are ordered to hold and stop the Soviets coming across the ice. So that's the day's fighting on Boxing Day. And because the Finns know how to fight in this weather, because the Finns know the territory, and also because they know they got no choice but to stand and fight here, they do, and they hold the Soviet 4th Division, who are trying to send more people across the ice, but it's clear moonlight, so they're Finnish
they're easy
artillery.
to see, and they're just getting cut down, presumably.
Yeah, getting cut down. So day or night, it doesn't really make any much difference if you've got moonlight.
No, because also you just get so used to it, and particularly on snow. Obviously, the light is reflected off the snow.
Exactly, and blokes running about with kit are really, really visible. And the Soviets lose something like a regiment of people in this fighting on the ice.
So that's several thousand.
Yeah. And the Finns say the ice is littered with piles of bodies. There's just bodies absolutely everywhere.
Oh, God.
So that's Christmas Day and Boxing Day. We come to the third day. The Finns launch another counterattack after the Soviets have been plastered with artillery, but again, they're repulsed. And then they up their artillery support. And by the end of the day, and after 7 hours of continuous fighting, the Finns get into the Soviet positions, they infiltrate them, and they winkle them out, and the Soviets are gone. And it means by the morning of the 28th of December, the battle's over, and they've completely cleared the area of living Soviet soldiers, at least.
Wow.
And there's a really amazing description of there's a guy called Fresh Marilla, who's a team leader. He's from Raisiala. I think I've pronounced that right. He's part of the Viborg Civil Guard, so the Viuli Civil Guard. He's a good skier. He's a good shooter. He's a heavyweight wrestler. And in one of the accounts of the battle, he says, "As I was in good health, I had the pleasure and honour of being the first to plunge into a trench full of knuckles at the other end of it. I counted it straight in line and saw 5 Vanyas fall. Once I got off to a good start and shot the magazine empty, there was no time left to recharge, and I had the opportunity to use the bayonet fighting skills I had learned during my time at academy and practiced in competition. I was allowed to beat with both the butt of a rifle and a bayonet to get ahead in the grave. I got a Russian bore sight from somewhere. It was a precise weapon, and marks on the ice began to appear. Torika witnessed beside me as he watched my shooting, flat and dead. I'd fired about 70 rounds with the rifle when I got a bullet in my back from somewhere in a lone enemy colony from under the shoulder blade. That was the end of my hunting trip. In it, I've been able to use all the combat skills I'd acquired in peacetime schools." So it's slaughter out on the ice floe.
It's just, there's so many questions that come out of this. I mean, it's minus 40 degrees. How are they operating? How are they keeping the weapons operating and any vehicles, the ammo? You know, I was thinking if he's using the bayonet, I mean, don't these guys have layers of clothes? And it'd be hard to stab almost, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. How strong is he? You know, I mean, he's a heavyweight wrestler. So it's interesting because the other day I was reading, there was a really good piece in the Times about British soldiers learning to deal with the cold in Finland and doing a skills exchange thing. And it's all about, there was all this stuff about what you do with your weapon is you make sure it stays cold. Because if you warm it up, ice will form on it, then jam it. And so what you do is you don't sleep, you sleep with it outside your sleeping bag so that you don't warm it up. Because if you warm it up, it'll jam, it'll gum up.
Right.
And you put newspaper in your boots to draw the moisture out of your feet, because otherwise, and you change them as regularly as you possibly can. You change your underwear as often as you possibly can, because it's moisture, water that is the absolute enemy. And the last thing you want to do is sweat. You've got to try and do everything without sweating. But if you're exerting yourself,
wow,
you're going to. And if you're in the snow, how can you possibly stay dry?
So just the sort of the tactical challenges of living, or the practical challenge is simply living in this environment, then fighting in it. You know, you're going to be running slowly, aren't you? You're going to be slower. You're going to be less agile because of all the layers of clothing, you know. So if you are a rifleman with a decent rifle dug in somewhere, you will be able to pick Vanyas off.
What do you do with your trigger finger, though? I mean, what kind of gloves do you have, if any?
I don't know.
You have to have some, don't you? I mean,
you must.
Or is it going to stick to the metal?
It's going to stick to the metal,
just like it would, for an 8th Air Force gunner or something. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's that kind of environment, but on the ground. I mean, much less the wind. Whatever the wind could be doing.
I mean, you can completely see, can't you, that he who is prepared is going to come out on top on this, or is going to have an unbelievable advantage.
Yeah. And then if you're prepared and mobilized, you know, you're motivated rather, you're going to be able to hang on. Certainly while the weather's favouring the defender like this, isn't it? The outcome is that this Soviet attack fails. Although what it does is it means the Finns have to redistribute their reserves. So again, they've got that problem of robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they are short on manpower, but they have to reinforce there because they can see there's a threat. But they get 12 anti-tank guns, 140 machine guns, 200 light machine guns, and 1,500 rifles, because that's the kind of war they're fighting, where they desperately need kit. I mean, we've never ever talked about the Winter War on the podcast before, Jim.
No, we never have. We've
never touched on it. And I think what this result hopefully will result in is someone popping up and going, "You got that all wrong. I need to come on and put you straight on this, your divs." By March 1940, They signed terms to the Moscow Treaty. It's over. This place we're talking about, Karelian, is now called Portovo, and it's in the Pirozevsky district in the Leningrad Oblast. So it doesn't belong to Finland anymore. The Finns lose 25,000 soldiers killed, 22,000 square miles of Finnish land. That's 10% of Finland is lost, including the whole of the Karelian Isthmus that we've been talking about.
You can see why they joined forces with the Germans, can't you, to go and smash Leningrad?
Yeah, of course.
You know what the last last sentence of my notes for this is? You can see why Mannerheim sided with the Germans when the moment came to get the Soviets out. Yeah, I'll finish with what Mannerheim says in his memoirs and Lessons of the Winter War. The one lesson above all that I wish to stamp on the consciousness of the next generation is this: fractiousness in one's own ranks is more deadly than the enemy's sword, and internal discord opens the door to the outside aggressor. The people of Finland have shown in 2 wars that a united nation, small though it may be, can develop unprecedented fighting power and thus withstand the most formidable ordeals that destiny brings. By closing ranks at the moment of peril, the people of Finland earned for themselves the right to continue to live their own independent lives within the family of free peoples. They did not waver in their efforts. They were made of sound and sturdy stuff. If we remain faithful to ourselves, and if at all moments of destiny we cling unanimously and unfaltering to the values which to this day have been the foundation of Finland's freedom, the faith inherited from our fathers, the love of our homeland, and the determination and intrepid readiness to defend it, then the people of Finland can look to the future with the firmest of confidence.
Amazing.
Churchillian stuff. That's why we changed sides, by the way, is also what he's saying.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Fair enough.
So there we go. The Battle of Karelian, Christmas Day to December the 27th, 1939, in the Karelian Isthmus in the Winter War.